Have you ever watched an old Hollywood show and noticed a face that felt powerful, familiar, unforgettable, but you couldn't quite place her name? That woman might have been Judy Pace. She wasn't always the loudest star in the room, but she was often the one breaking the most important barriers, quietly, confidently, and without recognition. And when she passed away in 2026, it didn't dominate headlines the way it should have. But her story? It's bigger than most people realize. Today, we're taking a closer look at the life, the impact, and the legacy of Judy Pace. Judy Pace wasn't just an actress. She was part of a generation that walked into Hollywood when the doors weren't fully open and still found a way to step through. At a time when roles for Black women were limited and often stereotypical, she chose something different. She chose presence. She chose strength. She chose to be seen. Judy Pace was born on June 15, 1942, in Los Angeles, California. Growing up in a working-class household, she wasn't surrounded by fame or privilege. Her father worked as an airplane mechanic, and her mother was a dressmaker. But what she was surrounded by was discipline. From an early age, Judy understood that success didn't come from waiting. It came from effort, and that mindset would shape everything she did. Before acting, Judy Pace entered the world of modeling, and she didn't just participate, she stood out. She became one of the youngest models to walk in the famous Ebony Fashion Fair, a groundbreaking showcase that celebrated Black beauty at a time when mainstream platforms didn't. This wasn't just about fashion. It was about visibility, and Judy carried herself in a way that demanded attention without ever asking for it. By the early 1960s, Judy Pace stepped into acting. Her first film appearance came in 13 Frightened Girls in 1963. But here's what made her journey different. She wasn't just another actress trying to fit in. She was part of a shift, a movement. At a time when Hollywood often placed Black actresses into narrow roles, Judy Pace began carving out space for something more layered, more human. In 1968, Judy Pace made history. She became the first Black actress to portray a villain on primetime television in the hit series Peyton Place. Now think about that. At a time when representation was already limited, she stepped into a role that was bold, complex, and completely different from the stereotypes of the time. She didn't just play a character, she challenged expectations. And in doing so, she opened doors. Even if you don't immediately recognize her name, chances are you've seen Judy Pace. She appeared in a wide range of iconic shows, including Bewitched, Batman, I Dream of Jeannie, Sanford and Son, and Good Times. She also made her mark in films like Cotton Comes to Harlem, Brian's Song, and Frogs. She wasn't limited to one type of role. She moved between genres, styles, and characters with ease. And that versatility made her unforgettable. In 1970, Judy Pace received an NAACP Image Award for her performance in The Young Lawyers. This wasn't just another trophy. It was recognition of her talent in an industry that didn't always acknowledge women like her. She had earned respect. And more importantly, she had earned her place. Away from the spotlight, Judy Pace lived a full and meaningful life. She married actor Don Mitchell in 1972, and together they had 2 daughters, including actress Julia Pace Mitchell. Later, she married former Major League Baseball star Curt Flood in 1986. Their story was unique. They had first met years earlier on a television dating show before reconnecting later in life. It was a reminder that life doesn't always follow a straight path. Sometimes things come full circle. By the late 1970s, Judy Pace began to step away from acting, and for many people, that raised questions. Why leave at a time when her career was still strong? The answer is simple. She chose a different kind of life. One that wasn't driven by constant visibility or public validation. She had already made her mark. She didn't need to prove anything else. Judy Pace may not have always been the most talked about actress, but her influence runs deep. She was part of the foundation that made space for future generations. Actresses who now enjoy broader roles and greater visibility are standing on ground that people like Judy helped build. And she did it without demanding attention, without controversy, without noise. In her later years, Judy Pace lived a more private life. She stayed out of the spotlight, focusing on family, reflection, and personal peace. But even in that quiet space, her legacy continued to speak. Those who knew her work understood exactly what she had contributed. On March 11, 2026, Judy Pace passed away peacefully in her sleep in Marina del Rey, California. She was 83 years old. There were no dramatic headlines, no prolonged public illness, just a quiet, dignified goodbye. And in many ways, that reflected exactly who she was. Judy Pace's life teaches something powerful. Not every legacy is loud. Not every pioneer gets the spotlight they deserve. But impact isn't measured by noise. It's measured by change. And Judy Pace was part of a generation that changed everything. So the next time you're watching an old film or a classic TV show and you see a face that feels familiar, take a moment. Because behind that face might be a story that helped shape the world you're watching today. Judy Pace didn't just act. She made space. She created possibility. And she proved that sometimes the most powerful people in history are the ones you almost overlook. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because we're telling the stories that don't always make the headlines, but always deserve to be heard. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay safe.